21 most productive crops to plant in November. Hey there, plant lovers. Welcome back to Earthly Delights, the little corner of the internet where we turn soil, sunlight, and a bit of patience into pure joy. If you're someone who finds peace in watering a pot on your balcony, who gets lost in the scent of damp soil after rain, or who's been dreaming of turning that quiet backyard into something alive again, this one's for you. You've probably heard it before. November's too late to plant anything. But here's the truth most people miss. This is actually the perfect time to grow some of the most productive, flavorful crops of the entire year. The cool air, the longer nights, the slow, steady rhythm of the earth. It all works in your favor if you know what to plant and when. In this video, we're exploring 21 incredibly productive crops you can still plant in November before it's too late. Whether you're a beginner with just a few pots by the window or an experienced gardener, preparing your soil for winter, these crops will reward you with fresh, homegrown food when the world outside looks quiet and still. So grab your gloves, take a deep breath of that crisp November air, and let's get started. But before we dig in, don't forget to subscribe to Earthly Delights and join our growing family of home gardeners who believe that a little dirt under the nails is good for the soul. 1. Garlic, the winter treasure that multiplies itself if you've ever dreamed of growing. Something that keeps on giving, garlic is that quiet miracle waiting beneath the frost. November might seem cold and lifeless, but it's actually when garlic begins its secret work. Each tiny clove you tuck into the soil this month will rest through winter slowly, pushing roots deep into the earth, gathering strength for the explosion of life that comes next spring. Think about it. One small clove can turn into a full bulb with up to a dozen new cloves. It's nature's way of reminding us that growth doesn't always happen fast. Sometimes it happens quietly, unseen, and all at once when the time is right. For those of you growing in apartments or small yards, don't worry. Garlic loves containers. Just choose a sunny windowsill or balcony spot and plant the cloves pointy end up, about 2 inches deep, 4 inches apart. If you live somewhere cold, go for hard-neck types like Music or German Extra Hardy. 4. Warmer climates, soft-neck varieties like California Early will thrive and store beautifully. The trick is simple. Plant before the ground freezes hard, water lightly, and then, here's the best part, let nature take over. Come midsummer when you pull up those full, fragrant bulbs, you'll realize November wasn't the end of your gardening season. It was the beginning of something powerful. And that's the quiet magic of garlic. 2. Kale, the leafy green that sweetens with frost now that we've set our garlic to rest. For the winter, let's move to something that doesn't just survive the cold. It thrives in it. Kale is the kind of plant that teaches you resilience. It stands tall when the frost bites. It grows richer in flavor when the nights turn icy. And it gives back long after most crops have called it quits. For those of you tending small balcony gardens or corner patches in the backyard, kale is your steady companion. It doesn't ask for much, just a bit of space, some winter light, and your gentle touch. Once planted, it keeps producing again and again. Harvest the outer leaves and the center keeps pushing out new growth, almost like it's saying, don't worry, I've got more for you. If you've ever tasted kale after a frost, you know how magical it can be. The cold transforms its flavor, softening the bitterness and turning it slightly sweet. Nature's own seasoning. Varieties like lacinato, often called dinosaur kale, or the classic curly types will do beautifully this time of year. Plant them about a foot apart, and if you live where winters get rough, a simple fabric, cover or plastic tunnel will keep them cozy and green. What's special about kale isn't just its toughness, it's the generosity it shows. From November through spring, it gives you fresh, living food when the garden feels asleep. So as you sip your warm drink and look out at the frost-covered world, remember, somewhere in your garden, your kale is quietly thriving, waiting to fill your winter meals with strength and color. 3. Spinach, the fast-growing green that never quits after planting kale. Let's talk about a crop that rewards patience with speed. Spinach. It's one of those rare vegetables that seem to understand our busy lives. You plant it, give it a little care, and before you know it, there's a fresh harvest waiting for your table. Spinach is the quiet overachiever of the November garden. Humble, fast, and endlessly generous. What makes spinach so special this time of year is how perfectly it loves the cold. When the days grow short and the air turns crisp, spinach gets stronger, not weaker. The secret lies in its chemistry. Those chilly nights trigger the leaves to convert starches into sugars, giving them that tender sweetness you'll never find in store-bought greens. For those growing in small containers or raised beds, spinach is a dream. Just scatter the seeds, keep them moist until they sprout, and thin them gently once. They're a few inches tall. Harvest the outer leaves as they reach about 4 to 6 inches, and leave the center to keep growing. This way, each plant gives you multiple rounds of fresh greens through winter. And here's the beauty of it. Spinach doesn't need much space or sunlight to thrive. It's perfect for anyone with a window box, a balcony pot, or even a few square feet in the garden. When other crops fade, spinach keeps working, offering you handfuls of nutrient-rich leaves for salads, soups, and warm winter dishes. So as your kale grows tall and your garlic sleeps below the frost, let spinach fill the gap, a simple, reliable reminder that life keeps growing, even in the coldest months. 4. Lettuce, the cool weather green that keeps on giving. Now that our spinach is thriving, let's move to one of the most comforting sights in any garden: the soft, vibrant leaves of lettuce. There's something deeply satisfying about watching those tender greens unfurl in the cool November light. And the best part? Lettuce actually prefers this season. When the heat of summer is gone, it finally relaxes, growing crisp and sweet without the bitterness that warmer months bring. For anyone with limited space, a patio box, a garden tray, or even a few pots by the kitchen window, lettuce is your go-to. You don't need much room, just a bit of cool air and some gentle moisture. The beauty of lettuce lies in its simplicity. Mix different varieties like butterhead, romaine, and loose leaf, and you'll have your own gourmet salad bar growing right at home. Each type adds a different texture and color, turning your garden bed into a painter's palette of greens and reds. The secret to endless harvests is the cut-and-come-again method. Simply snip the outer leaves an inch above the base and let the plant regenerate. It'll keep producing for weeks, even months. In colder zones, a small row cover or a clear plastic container turned upside down creates a mini greenhouse that stretches your season effortlessly. And here's something most gardeners love. Lettuce grows quickly. In as little as 30 days, you can start your first harvest. So while your slower crops are taking their time, your lettuce bed becomes your instant reward, fresh, living food that keeps on giving. So as we move through November's chill, remember that even the smallest space can bloom with life. Sometimes all it takes is a handful of seeds and a little patience. Live, Swiss chard, the colorful survivor that brightens winter as your lettuce greens shimmer in the cool air. It's time to add a splash of color to your November garden. And nothing does that better than Swiss chard. With its brilliant rainbow stems and deep green leaves, it's like planting a piece of sunlight that refuses to fade even when the days grow short. Chard isn't just beautiful, it's one of the toughest, most giving plants you can grow this time of year. For gardeners who crave something vibrant during the gray months, chard is a gift. It laughs at frost, stands strong against cold winds, and keeps producing for months. Each plant grows tall and full, offering leaf after leaf that you can harvest continuously. Just take the outer leaves and let the center keep growing. It's the same rhythm of abundance that nature seems to whisper every season. Even if you're gardening in containers or small beds, Swiss chard will happily adapt. Space the plants about a hand's width apart and watch as they spread their colorful stalks like ribbons across the soil. Varieties like Bright Lights or 5-color silver beet are especially striking, bringing a painter's palette to your garden and your kitchen. And beyond its looks, chard is a powerhouse of nutrition, packed with vitamins and minerals your body craves in the colder months. Saute it with garlic, toss it into soups, or use the tender stems like asparagus. It's versatile, hardy, and endlessly generous. So as the cold deepens and the world outside quiets, your Swiss chard will stand proud. A reminder that even in winter, life can still be bold, colorful, and full of flavor. 6. Carrots, the sweet roots that hide beneath the frost now that your garden is bursting. With greens, it's time to turn your attention underground, to the quiet sweetness growing just beneath your feet. Carrots may seem humble, but November is when they truly shine. As the air cools and the soil begins to chill, something magical happens inside those roots. Their natural sugars rise, transforming every crisp bite into something sweeter than any store-bought version. Planting carrots in November is like setting a slow-cooking treasure beneath the soil. They take their time, growing patiently through winter, drawing in the cool earth's calm energy. For those of you working with small gardens or raised beds, carrots are perfect. They don't ask for much space, just loose, rock-free soil and a bit of patience. If you're gardening on a balcony or patio, use deep containers or fabric grow bags. They'll give those roots the depth they need to grow long and straight. Once planted, cover the soil with a soft layer of mulch or straw to protect them from frost. This simple trick turns the earth into a natural refrigerator, keeping your carrots fresh and ready to harvest whenever you need them. Just brush aside the mulch, pull one up, and leave the rest to keep growing quietly beneath the cold. The beauty of carrots is in their rhythm. Steady, silent, reliable. They remind us that growth doesn't have to be seen to be real. So while winter whispers across your garden, your carrots are quietly sweetening, preparing to surprise you with their hidden warmth when spring arrives. 7. Beets, the double harvest that feeds both body and soul. After tending to your carrots, it's time to meet their colorful cousin, the beet. This humble root is one of the most rewarding crops you can plant in November because it gives you not one but two harvests. Above the soil, tender beet greens shimmer like emeralds, while below, ruby-colored roots swell quietly through the cold months. It's a perfect symbol of abundance, beauty above, nourishment below. Beets are wonderfully forgiving, thriving in chilly weather when most plants slow down. For small space gardeners, they're a blessing. A few rows in a raised bed or a deep planter will keep your kitchen stocked all winter. And here's a secret. The greens are just as valuable as the roots. You can start harvesting baby leaves just a few weeks after planting, adding them to salads or sauté, while the roots continue maturing underground. When your seedlings appear, thin them gently, leaving about 3 inches between each one. Those tiny thinnings, don't toss them. They're microgreens, full of flavor and color. As winter deepens, your beets will quietly grow sweeter, the cold turning their earthy flavor into something smooth and rich. Varieties like Detroit Dark Red or Bull's Blood bring not only bold color, but resilience against frost. And when you finally pull one from the soil, the satisfaction is deeper than flavor. It's the feeling of harvesting time itself. Because in a world that rushes, beets remind us that some of the best things grow slow, quietly gathering sweetness in the dark before they're ready to be shared. 8. Radishes, the quick reward that brings life back to your garden as your beets quietly mature beneath the soil. Let's bring a little speed back into the garden. If patience is not your strongest virtue, radishes are your perfect match. They are the sprinters of the vegetable world, fast, vibrant, and full of character. In just 3 to 4 weeks, these crisp, peppery roots will be ready to pull, giving you that burst of satisfaction that only quick-growing crops can deliver. Planting radishes in November is like adding a dash of excitement to your cold-season garden. They thrive in cool air, love short days, and actually develop their best flavor when the weather dips. Their roots grow firm and juicy, while their greens stay tender and bright. For gardeners with small spaces or container setups, radishes are the ultimate low-effort, high-reward crop. All you need is a shallow tray or pot, a bit of well-draining soil, and a sprinkle of seeds spaced just an inch or two apart. And here's the best part. You don't have to stop at one batch. Plant a new handful of seeds every week, and you'll have a steady supply of fresh, crunchy radishes all through winter. They're perfect for snacking, slicing into salads, or even roasting for a milder, sweeter flavor. Radishes also make gardening fun again. If you've got kids or just love seeing quick results, these little red gems bring joy in record time. Every seed you plant becomes a tiny promise fulfilled within weeks. In the stillness of November, that kind of instant life feels like a spark, a reminder that even the smallest effort can yield something fresh, crisp, and full of energy. 9. Broccoli, the cold season giant that keeps giving once you've harvested those quick, cheerful radishes. It's time to shift your focus to something grander. The mighty broccoli. This crop is a true symbol of endurance, thriving when most gardens have gone to sleep. Planting broccoli in November may sound late, but in reality, it's perfect timing. Cool weather is its secret ally, helping it grow dense, flavorful heads without the bitterness that often comes with heat. Broccoli teaches patience and reward in equal measure. You start with a small transplant, tuck it into rich soil, and watch as it slowly builds. Strength under the pale winter sun. When that first central head forms, tight, green, and heavy, it feels like a small victory. But the real magic comes after you harvest it. Unlike most vegetables, broccoli doesn't stop there. It keeps producing smaller side shoots from the base, giving you fresh florets week long after you thought the season was done. For those of you gardening in small yards or raised beds, give broccoli space to breathe. About 1.5 feet between plants is enough. Keep the soil fertile with compost, and nature will do the rest. The cold will deepen the sweetness of each bite, and your patience will pay off with harvest stretching well into spring. And here's something special. Once you taste your own homegrown broccoli, you'll never look at the store-bought kind the same way again. It's fresher, softer, and somehow more alive, carrying the crispness of winter air in every bite. So as your garden rests, let broccoli stand tall, a green crown of endurance that keeps giving long after the others fade. 10 Brussels sprouts, the frost-kissed gems that reward your patience after the grand harvest of broccoli. It's time to meet its close relative, the charming yet often misunderstood Brussels sprout. These tiny cabbage-like gems may take their time, but what they give back is pure winter magic. If you've only ever tasted store-bought sprouts, you're in for a surprise. When grown in your own garden and kissed by a few frosty nights, their flavor transforms. Sweet, nutty, and rich, like nature's way of saying, thank you for your patience. Brussels sprouts are slow growers, but that's part of their beauty. Once planted in November, they spend months quietly building tall, sturdy stalks, each lined with dozens of perfect green buttons. Each sprout develops from the bottom up, ripening in order, giving you weeks of harvest, rather than one big rush. For gardeners with patience, and perhaps a little curiosity, this crop becomes a living sculpture in the winter garden. They love cool air and steady soil moisture, thriving in spaces where the wind can brush through their leaves. If you're planting in a small garden, give each one room to stretch, about 2 feet apart. As they grow taller, remove a few of the lower leaves to direct their energy into forming tight, delicious sprouts. When it's finally time to harvest, start from the bottom, twisting each plump little sprout from the stalk. The colder the air, the sweeter they'll taste. Steam them, roast them, or toss them with olive oil and salt. Their flavor will surprise you. Brussels sprouts teach every gardener one quiet truth. The best things often take time, and in the stillness of winter, patience tastes sweeter than ever. 11 Cabbage, the cool weather giant that stores the season's strength as your Brussels sprouts reach toward the pale winter sun. It's time to turn to a classic that has nourished generations, cabbage. There's something timeless about it, something comforting. Maybe it's the way those broad green leaves curl into a tight head, protecting the tender heart within. Or maybe it's because cabbage represents everything we love about cool weather gardening. Patience, resilience, and abundance that lasts. Planting cabbage in November may seem late, but for this crop, it's just right. The cool air keeps pests away and encourages slow, steady growth that builds dense, flavorful heads. Each one feels like a small gift when you finally cut it free. Heavy in your hands, crisp and full of life. And the best part? These heads can keep for months in a cool place, feeding you well into the new year. For smaller gardens or raised beds, choose compact varieties like Golden Acre. They form tidy round heads perfect for limited space. If you have a little more room, try larger heirloom types like Late Flat Dutch, known for their incredible storage life. Cabbage thrives in rich compost-fed soil and appreciates consistent watering. Not too much, not too little. What's truly wonderful is how versatile it is. From hearty soups to fresh slaws and fermentations like sauerkraut, cabbage stretches far beyond its humble appearance. When you harvest your first head, you'll feel that quiet pride of self-reliance, the joy of growing something lasting. In a season when many gardens sleep, cabbage stands strong, holding the strength of the earth in every crisp, folded leaf. 12 Turnips, the underrated root that doubles its gift as your cabbages form their firm. Green hearts, another humble hero, waits for its moment. The turnip. Often overlooked, sometimes misunderstood, but always generous, the turnip is a quiet miracle of November. It gives not just one harvest, but two. Tender greens above the soil and crisp, sweet roots below. Few plants can match that kind of generosity. When you plant turnips this month, you're inviting abundance that unfolds in layers. In just a few weeks, those fresh, peppery greens will be ready to cut, perfect for sautéing or tossing into warm soups. Then as winter deepens, the roots swell beneath the surface, storing sweetness from the cold earth. The chill actually improves their flavor, softening the bite and turning them mellow, almost buttery. Turnips are also wonderfully adaptable. Whether you have a sprawling garden or just a few containers, they'll find a way to thrive. Sprinkle the seeds lightly, cover them gently with soil, and thin the seedlings once they appear. Those tiny sprouts you remove, they make perfect salad microgreens. In colder zones, mulch the soil and let the roots rest there all winter, ready whenever you need them. There's something comforting about growing turnips. They remind you that beauty isn't always bold. Some of the best things grow quietly, half-hidden, waiting for you to discover them. When you pull a turnip from the cold soil on a crisp morning, you're not just harvesting food, you're holding a piece of the season's patience and warmth in your hands. 13 onions, the two-in-one crop that grows while you wait. After the earthy sweetness of turnips, it's time to plant something that rewards both your patience and your practicality in onions. They're the quiet backbone of every kitchen and one of the smartest crops you can start in November. What makes onions so special this time of year is their ability to multitask, giving you fresh green tops during winter and full, flavorful bulbs by spring. It's like planting two harvests in one go. If you've ever sliced into a crisp homegrown onion, you know it's nothing like what you find at the store. The flavor is cleaner, sharper, more alive, and the best part? They're incredibly low maintenance. Start with onion sets. Those small, half-grown bulbs you can find at most garden centers. Simply press them into the soil about an inch deep, pointy side up and 2 inches apart. That's it. Through the winter, they'll quietly take root, soaking up moisture from the cool air and rain. You can snip the green tops as needed, like scallions, and the plants will keep producing. Then as days lengthen and spring arrives, the bulbs beneath the soil will begin to swell into full-sized onions, storing the energy they've gathered all season. Whether you're growing them in raised beds or even deep containers on a sunny balcony, onions will happily adapt. They're strong, steady companions, plants that remind us that growth doesn't always need to rush. By the time summer arrives, you'll lift those golden bulbs from the soil, realizing that what began as a quiet November planting has turned into months of homegrown flavor. 14. Arugula, the peppery green that plants itself again once your onions are quietly settling in. It's time to add something quick, lively, and just a little wild. Arugula. If your garden were a symphony, arugula would be that unexpected high note that makes everything else come alive. Its sharp, peppery flavor cuts through the heaviness of winter meals, adding freshness, exactly when you need it most. And the best part? It's one of the easiest greens you'll ever grow. It almost plants itself. Arugula loves the cool air of November. The gentle chill keeps its leaves tender, while the short days help it grow with just enough bite to keep things interesting. For those with limited space, this crop feels like a gift. You can sprinkle the seeds across a shallow tray, a balcony planter, or even a corner of your garden bed. Within a few weeks, those first small leaves will appear, ready to harvest when they're just 3 or 4 inches long. The beauty of arugula is that it doesn't stop. Harvest a few outer leaves and it keeps growing back. Leave a few plants to flower in spring, and they'll drop seeds on their own, returning next season without you lifting a finger. It's nature's version of generosity, effortless and dependable. When you taste that first homegrown arugula leaf, spicy yet refreshing, it wakes you up a little. It reminds you that even in the quiet months, life is still full of surprises. Growing arugula in November isn't just about adding another green, it's about keeping your garden alive with flavor, movement, and a hint of wild spirit. 15. Mustard greens, the bold flavor that wakes up winter after the gentle spice of arugula. It's time to turn up the flavor with a crop that's full of personality. Mustard greens. They're bold, vibrant, and unapologetically alive, bringing a kick of warmth to your garden and your plate. When most plants slow down in the cold, mustard greens burst into life, their leaves shimmering like emerald fans in the pale November sun. Planting mustard greens this time of year is like adding energy to your garden. They love cool air, they grow fast, and they don't mind a little frost. In fact, the chill makes their flavor more complex, still peppery but softer, almost buttery around the edges. For those with small spaces or balcony planters, they're a dream. Sprinkle the seeds into shallow soil, keep them lightly moist, and in just a few weeks, you'll have a lush patch of edible green fire. Harvesting them is as easy as a gentle snip. Take the outer leaves and let the plant keep producing, or cut the whole bunch an inch above the base for a fresh regrowth. Red giant and southern giant curled varieties are particularly stunning, adding a splash of deep red or rich green curls to your winter garden. Cooking with mustard greens feels like inviting warmth into your home. Toss them into a stir-fry, steam them lightly, or blend them with milder greens for balance, and every bite feels nourishing, alive, and grounding. Growing them in November isn't just about adding variety. It's about keeping your garden's rhythm alive even when the air turns cold and still. 16. Mache, the delicate green that loves the cold as the boldness of mustard greens fills your garden with life. It's time to introduce something gentler. Mache, also known as corn salad. This tender little green doesn't compete with the others. It quietly complements them. Where mustard brings energy, mache brings calm. It's soft, nutty, and surprisingly resilient. A delicate soul that thrives when everything else seems to slow down. Mache is made for November. It loves short days, cool air, and the kind of filtered light that winter brings. You can sow it directly into beds, pots, or even a window box, and it will grow happily, without much attention. The seeds are tiny, like specks of dust, so scatter them gently across moist soil and press them in with your fingertips. Within weeks, you'll see little rosettes of round green leaves forming low to the ground, like nature's own ornaments. What makes mache so special is how well it grows in near-freezing temperatures. While other greens shiver and fade, it keeps growing, slowly, steadily, without complaint. You can harvest it whole by cutting just above the roots, or pick leaf by leaf for a longer season. And the flavor? Mild, buttery, with a subtle sweetness that feels like sunshine in the middle of winter. It's also a beautiful reminder of balance, that not every crop needs to be bold to be powerful. In a season of stark colors and bare branches, mache brings softness, a quiet resilience. That feels almost poetic. It's the green that whispers rather than shouts, and yet somehow it stays in your memory, long after the frost melts away. 17. Claytonia, the hidden gem that thrives in the shade as mache quietly fills your garden with soft greens. There's another tender soul ready to join the November rhythm. Claytonia, also known as miner's lettuce. This little plant may not demand attention, but once you grow it, you'll never forget it. It's the kind of green that hides in shady corners, thriving where most vegetables refuse to grow. And yet it rewards you with round, delicate leaves so crisp and mild, they taste like a whisper of spring in the middle of winter. Claytonia is made for gardeners who believe every inch of space has potential. It doesn't mind the cold, and it actually prefers partial shade, the dim, cool light, under taller plants or along the north wall of your garden. Scatter the seeds gently across damp soil, barely covering them, and within a few weeks, you'll see small clusters of circular leaves spreading close to the ground. They almost look like tiny lily pads, fresh and dew-covered, each one holding the gentle sweetness of the season. Harvesting Claytonia feels like discovering something secret. You can snip a few leaves here and there, and they'll keep coming back. Or let the plant self-seed. They'll return on their own next year, even stronger. Their flavor is soft and slightly tangy, perfect for winter salads or as a bright accent to heartier dishes. There's a quiet beauty in Claytonia. It reminds us that not everything has to grow tall to be strong. Some plants, just like some people, bloom best in the shadows. And in the stillness of November, this unassuming little green quietly keeps the promise of life alive. 18. Collard greens, the evergreen strength of the winter garden. After the soft delicacy of Claytonia, it's time to turn to a true symbol of endurance, collard greens. These broad, powerful leaves have fed generations through long winters, standing tall, when nearly every other plant has bowed to the cold. If kale is the garden's philosopher, collards are its warrior. Strong, steady, and unshaken by frost or time. Planting collards in November is like making a pact with resilience itself. They don't mind the chill. In fact, they thrive on it. The cool air makes their leaves tender and mild, turning what's often a summer staple into a winter delicacy. For those of you gardening in zones where frost is common, collards are a dependable friend. You can plant them directly in the soil or grow them in deep containers, and they'll push out fresh leaves for months. The best part? One collard plant can feed you for an entire season. Harvest the outer leaves as you need them, and the center will keep producing new ones, tall and proud. Even after a hard freeze, the leaves will bounce back, greener and sweeter than before. The variety called Georgia is especially beloved. Lush, flavorful, and almost indestructible. Cooking collards is an experience in comfort. Simmer them slowly with garlic, olive oil, or a bit of broth, and they release a flavor that feels like home, earthy, hearty, and grounding. Growing collards reminds us that strength doesn't have to be loud. It can be steady, dependable, and deeply nourishing, a quiet force standing firm in the heart of winter. 19 bok choy, the crisp delight that loves the cold as your collards stretch proudly. Through the frost, it's time to bring in a vegetable that balances elegance and strength. Bok choy, with its glossy green leaves and white spoon-shaped stems, bok choy is the definition of grace in the garden. But don't let its delicate looks fool you. It's one of the toughest crops you can grow in. November. It thrives in cool weather, grows fast, and rewards you with crisp, flavorful harvests in just a few short weeks. Bok choy feels almost made for the cold season. The gentle chill keeps its leaves tender and prevents it from bolting, something it often does in summer heat. For gardeners with limited space, this plant is a dream. You can tuck it into small beds, grow it in deep pots, or even line it along the edges of raised beds between slower crops. Its compact shape makes it a perfect fit anywhere. Within a month, you'll have baby bok choy, small, tender, and perfect for stir-fries or soups. Let them grow a little longer, and you'll get full-sized heads with crisp stems and lush green tops. Every part of the plant is edible, from root to tip, offering both texture and sweetness. When cooked, bok choy soaks up flavors beautifully. Garlic, ginger, soy sauce, a touch of sesame oil. And when eaten fresh, it's juicy and refreshing, almost like a bite of winter sunshine. Growing bok choy in November isn't just practical, it's deeply satisfying. It's proof that even in the coldest months, your garden can still produce something tender, vibrant, and full of life. 20. Peas, the climbing sweetness that signals hope as your bok choy fills the garden. With life, it's time to let something climb, something that stretches upward, even as the world grows colder. Peas are that symbol of quiet optimism, a plant that reminds us that growth doesn't always move fast, but it always moves forward. In November, when the soil is cool and the days are short, peas settle in with calm, determination, waiting for the first hints of spring to burst into bloom. What makes peas so special this time of year is their resilience. They love the cold, and the chill actually sweetens their pods, turning starch into sugar. Whether you choose snow peas, sugar snaps, or shelling peas, they'll reward you with tender vines full of crisp, sweet pods. All they need is a bit of support, a trellis, a fence, or even a few bamboo stakes. Watching them curl and climb inch by inch feels like witnessing hope itself take shape. For those gardening in small spaces, peas are perfect vertical growers. You can plant them along a balcony railing or in narrow garden beds. Their delicate tendrils will find their way upward, turning even the simplest space into a living wall of green. And when harvest time comes, the joy is pure and simple. The snap of a fresh pea pod, the burst of sweetness, the reminder that patience pays off. Peas don't just nourish your body, they lift your spirit, because every new tendril, every pod forming in the cold air is a quiet promise from your garden that life is always ready to return. 21. Fava beans, the cold weather powerhouse that enriches your garden. And finally, as your peas reach for the sky, let's talk about one last November treasure: fava beans. These sturdy plants are the unsung heroes of the cold season. They don't just grow through the chill, they thrive in it, standing tall with thick green stems and silver green leaves that seem to shimmer under the weak winter sun. If you've never grown them before, this is the year to start. Because fava beans do more than feed you, they feed your soil too. Planting them in November sets the stage for an early spring harvest. The cool weather keeps their growth steady and strong, while deep roots anchor them firmly into the earth. As they grow, they draw nitrogen from the air and return it to the soil, enriching it. Naturally, for whatever you plant next, it's like giving your garden a quiet dose of energy while still reaping your own reward. And when those flowers bloom, pale white petals with touches of black, you'll know something special is happening. Not only do they attract bees even in the colder months, but they also promise the pods that will follow. By late winter or early spring, you'll be harvesting thick green pods filled with buttery, nutty beans that taste like the earth waking up. Fava beans remind us that gardening isn't just about what we take from the soil, but what we give back. They stand as living proof that even in the coldest, quietest months, your garden is still alive, still working, still giving. It's the perfect final note to a November garden. Steady, strong, and full of quiet power. The November secret: let nature do the rest. And now, as we reach the end of this journey through the November garden, here's a truth every seasoned grower learns. Eventually, the best thing you can do for your plants this time of year is, sometimes, nothing at all. Once you've planted your garlic, your greens, your roots, and your climbers, resist the urge to fuss. Let the rain, the dew, and the cool air do their quiet work. Overwatering, overchecking, overthinking, that's what hurts most fall gardens. Cold soil holds moisture longer than summer soil, and those seeds need air just as much as they need water. So instead, take a step back. Breathe in that crisp air and know that beneath the surface, life is unfolding in perfect rhythm. Roots are stretching deeper, leaves are hardening to the cold, and your garden, your living patch of earth, is quietly preparing a feast for the months ahead. This is the beauty of November, a time when growth is subtle but powerful, when patience turns into harvest, and when hope sleeps just under the soil. Every seed you've planted this month is a promise that even in stillness, life never stops moving forward. If you've enjoyed this journey, I'd love to hear from you. Tell me in the comments, what will you be planting this November? Which crop are you most excited to try? And don't forget to subscribe to Earthly Delights, where every week we grow, learn, and rediscover the quiet magic of nature together. Until next time, keep your hands in the soil and your heart in the garden.